Shalom, and welcome to this presentation on YHWH's Timekeeping Lights, the Sun, Moon, and Stars, Part 2, by Daniel Fuentes, servant of YHWH. Let us go now to scriptural parameter number 2, and this is found in Shemot, Exodus, chapter 13, verses 4 through 5. Verse 4. Today, this is the Almighty speaking. Today you are going out in this new Chodesh, moon or month, Aviyv. Verse 5. And it shall be, when YHWH brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give to you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this new Chodesh, moon or month. Let us look at the Almighty's word here in Shemot, Exodus chapter 13, verses 4 through 5. It says today, that's referring to the 15th day of the first Chodesh, new moon or month. This is the first day of Chag Hamatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Breads, and this happened at night. And this is the Almighty saying, today you are going out in the new Chodesh, moon or month, which is Aviyv, and it's very important for us to understand what that word Aviyv means. Verse 5, and it shall be, when YHWH Yah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service. Which service? We know he's speaking of Pesach and Chag Hamatzot. In this new Chodesh, moon or month. Praise Yah. So it's in this month which is known as Aviyv. We have to understand what that word Aviyv means. And when you look it up in the Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon, you can find out that the word Aviyv means greenness. It has to do with greenness. And an understanding of that is the green leaves returning to trees after the winter season ends and the spring arrives. So Aviyv means greenness. It comes from the root word avav, and that avav means fruit bearing. And again, fruit bearing means that the tree is beginning to bear fruit. It's in the beginning stages, not that it's ripe. So Aviyv is linked with the turning of a season, and it's specifically spring. There's no denying it. Spring is the season when you see the greenness and fruit bearing here on earth. Aviyv is likened to a tree reaching a state of greenness and fruit bearing that is waited for and has returned, because that's how the seasons work, in a cycle, in a specific order. Aviyv, the return of greenness in the spring season after its departure in the fall season and absence in winter shows the fulfillment of Aviyv in some trees. We're going to see evidence of this in the book of Hanoch. This scripture does not say to keep Pesach and Chag Hamatzot in the winter, fall, or summer seasons. So it's very specific that it has to be Aviyv. Other scriptures will concur that YHWH's scriptural year begins in the spring season. Here we are in Hanoch, and we have scriptural parameter number 2 continued. Signs of Aviyv for the beginning of the year in Hanoch. This is a very special scripture because it ends all dispute of the beginning of the Almighty's year in the spring and understanding the signs of what Aviyv are. Here in Hanoch, in chapter 82, we're going to read verse 13. And then we're going to consider in the same chapter 82 of Hanok verses 15 and 16. Verse 13. And these are the names of the leaders who divide the 4 parts of the year, which are ordained: Malkiel, Alamelech, Melech Yaal, Aner Yael. In the beginning of the year, Melech-Al rises first and rules, who is named Tamaini and Shemesh, and all the days of his dominion while he bears rule are 91 days. Verse 16. All these are the signs, and these are the signs of the days which are to be seen on earth in the days of his dominion: sweat and heat and calms. And all the trees bear fruit, and leaves are produced on all the trees, and the harvest of wheat, and the rose flowers, and all the flowers which come forth in the field. But the trees of the winter season become withered. Again, this scripture just proves it all. Starting from verse 13 again, we see it's speaking of 4 messengers who divide the 4 parts of the year. These 4 parts of the year are the 4 seasons. Then verse 15 clearly says, in the beginning of the year. You can't get away from that. So this is the order of the seasons. This is the beginning of the Almighty Scriptural year. And it says, in the beginning, this Melech Yaal rises first before the other 3 and rules. And it says he gets 91 days of dominion. And we've already seen, and will continue to see as we continue to study, that the 4 seasons are in order, and spring is the first season, and it gets 91 days, which is 13 weeks. So this is again speaking of the seasons, and specifically spring, and verse 16 proves it without a shadow of a doubt, that in the dominion of this season that happens at the beginning of the year, the signs are sweat and heat and calms. That doesn't happen in the winter season. And we also have trees bearing fruit. That's exactly the meaning of Aviv. Leaves being produced on all the trees. Again, that's the returning of the greenness. Again, that's the fulfillment of Aviv. The harvest of wheat, the rose flowers, flowers coming forth in the field. Again, that is Aviv again. And then you see the very important final part, which is that the trees of the winter season become withered, meaning winter is past. Their time for having thrived in the winter season is gone, because now it's the springtime. So I thank the Almighty Yah for this scripture, because it is powerful. Scriptural parameter 2, continued. Let's talk about the order of seasons in Yovelim. Yovelim, Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23. And on the new moon of the 1st month, and on the new moon of the 4th month, and on the new moon of the 7th month, and on the new moon of the 10th month, are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a witness forever. What does this scripture mean? Let's find out. Again, here we are with scriptural parameter 2, the order of seasons in Yovelim. And this is Yovelim, Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 23. The highlighted portion of the text is, please pay attention, that it's speaking of the 1st month, the 4th month, the 7th month, and the 10th month. Also pay attention to the association that these special times of remembrance are associated with the days of the seasons. We just talked about that. And that they constitute 4 divisions in the year. So that tells us that these 1st month, 4th month, 7th month, and 10th month, it has to do with the seasons, and it has to do with the year being divided into those 4 parts, and that this is a witness forever. That means it continues even to our present time today. Although mentioning Chodeshim, this scripture is referencing their association, the Chodeshim's association, or the new moon's association, to solar months, and I will prove this. When you reckon these 4 seasonal division days, they don't land exactly on the first days of Chodeshim, of renewed lunar months, but are instead associated with them. The 4 seasonal division days fall perfectly on the first days of solar months, and we're going to see that when we count the solar year, the 12-month solar year, using the witness found in Chanukh. So the 4 seasonal division days fall perfectly on the first days of solar months in a 364-day, 52-week scriptural year. We're going to see that that is the scriptural year of the Almighty, a 364-day, 52-week year. The first month, so going back to verse 23, the first month is of the seasonal division is spring. We'll prove it. The 4th month of the seasonal division is summer. The 7th month of the seasonal division is fall or autumn. The 10th month of the seasonal division is winter. Again, their order is a witness forever. This is something the Almighty put in place. Thank you for joining me for part 2 of this presentation. We learned that Aviyv Chodesh is the first lunar month of the scriptural year, and that Aviv means the spring season. It's associated with greenness and fruit bearing. We also learn that the order of the seasons begins with spring and ends in the winter season. Here are some references that were used for part 2 of this teaching. I hope you'll join me for part 3 of this teaching.